Okay, well, welcome to this week's workshop. We're just going to be focusing on basically assigning materials and texturing our assets. If you remember from last week, our Fallguys inspired space was very white. So we're going to be adding some color, and if we get time, we'll be looking at a quick light map as well. So we're going to be focusing on trim sheets as well. So we'll be going over what that is and kind of how to do it. Most of the magic happens in Blender when you're unwrapping your assets, so we'll be looking at that. So, with all that in mind, let's jump in. Okay, so as a quick review of the space here, basically we have this. I've just created a quick modification of this. We probably won't use it for today. I do plan on using that eventually, so making sure that if people are going to be running, they're going to be sort of running together. So I have like a, sort of like a, what would you call it, thing that allows people to sort of gather in the same space and then run. But I wanted them to be able to see the track before they run, so a few small modifications there. But as noted, today we're going to be focusing on creating textures and using those to reduce the material calls, because materials are one of the big things that modify the draw calls of a space, and the draw calls are the things that costs a lot of the processing for space. So basically we're going to be looking at how can we use trim sheets, which is the magic of a thing. So basically we're going to be using this one texture. Now this is a very simple texture, and that's kind of on purpose because we want a kind of a simple space. But I could basically texture the whole space with this one texture. So what we're basically doing is cutting the texture kind of up into groups of different things that I would like to do. Now, if I wanted to, I could probably add a bit of, what would you call it? More texture? A bit of detail on this if I wanted to. So some like marble effect or something like that, but I'm actually going to keep it very simple for this purpose. And basically what this allows is I can put a really long... Well, it doesn't matter because there is no texture, so I can actually like put anything in this big purple area, and that will just be that color. And then I can use this to sort of do edge loops and things like that. And the thing is, because most of my... Hey! I'm Australian. I don't know how to say that name. Francois? Is that it? Francois? How's it going? Welcome to the stream. Just going over the basics of trim sheets for Mona spaces. Are you a Mona person? Have I seen you in the chat before? I think I have. But yeah, anyway, hello. So basically, yeah, we're going to be able to use this as a tile to affect our assets. And because most of our assets are very low polygon, this will actually be quite easy. So let's have a look at what's the big block? I've forgotten what everything is. Hey Alan, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Now, what did I name? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So I think it's this one. Yeah, this is it. And that's more cool. So this is our main block. Now what I'd like to do is we have our sort of assets. So if we look at the space here, we've got that. Now I'm going to create a texture that we can use on our assets. I'll just call it base. And then I'm going to go to shading so we can apply the texture we've got. So we want to go to add texture, image texture, plonk that there, drag the color down to color, and then go open. Now, I've saved this texture into the assets, like the build. So I'm going to do that. Just link where that is, which is textures and color. Right. Now, as you can see, it's purple. And the reason for that is, if I select it, like all of these polygons, they're mostly in the purple, which we don't actually want. So I could grab all of these, and then let's do Smart UV Project, and then it does that. So when we go this mode, it looks like that. Now, what I'd like to do is sort of have most of it one color with an edge. Now, when you're using trim sheets, the model plays as much a part of how you're texturing as the texture. So in this case, we've got these sort of edges. And for that, what we can do is select the top. Do we need the bottom? We don't, but I don't know. Let's do some interesting stuff. So I'm going to do inset. Go in like that. Actually, no. I'm going to use Control R and do this. So we sort of have two running edges. Now it messes up the UV, and that's fine because I'm just going to select all these again. Smart UV Project. Okay. And that looks the way it was. Now what we want to do though is we're going to use this information here, and we're therefore going to move it. Let's make this yellow. Like that. We're also going to do this. Actually, let's do this. This might be a bit easier to do it. Okay. It's going to go UV, project from view. There. Rotate that. And then we put it in the category that we would like. Going to rotate that. Move that down here. So they sort of line up. And then I'm going to scale them. Actually, I'm going to undo that and make sure they line up better. Like so. Cool. And then I'm going to scale that a bit higher as well, just to get that high quality. And then we're going to do the same, but this we want to be red. So it doesn't really matter what this is, but let's just project from view. Scale that down, put it there. And there we go. We have our tiled piece, which is great. Now the thing is, what I might want to do is use this one texture. That gets a bit tricky because reasons. We also might want to use the direction. So as you can see, they're both going that way, but this side is not exactly what we want. So I'm going to actually rotate that, and holding left control to sort of snap it. That doesn't work. So I'm going to go scale Y -1. There we go. And there we have a direction sort of thing. So what this does is it allows us to sort of give a hint to the user to like run that way, which is always good. And now I could very easily, and I'm going to, duplicate this. So Shift D to duplicate. Hide the first one. And then we're going to grab all of this and just move it up. And this time, because I've done it 4, like you can hold Control and it will snap up. And now we have a blue thing, which is great. Duplicate that again. Right mouse click to not move it anywhere. Grab all of this. G, W, snap, snap. We've got that. And duplicate it again. Get the full set. There we go. Now, do we... Yeah, let's just save these as one asset. Yeah, let's test this out. So let's export that. FBX, yep. Now, what did I call it? Starting block, no. Taskware, 5? Let's do a quick check. Taskware 5, yeah. Nope. Nope, yep. Okay. So let's go, yeah, that. Apply transforms. Yes, yes. Yes. Okay. Now what's going to happen is that. Now, we want to, so these are all different, and we also sort of want these to go the right direction. So for that, we can actually do this very easily. Center and pivot local. So when you rotate those, they're all facing the right direction. So same again. Now if I wanted to, I could delete... what's the best way to do these? Yeah, maybe separate is better. Yeah, let's do it separate, I suppose. Okay, so FBX selected, transform, so let's do that as the base one. Export. Next. Two. Three. And 4. Now, once again, if you're in the chat, feel free to ask any questions, either in the Mona general chat or in the chat, I guess. But happy to take any questions or whatnot. So we could have a red start. We could just do that. Move them up the top, so that's there. Okay. Now the thing is, all of these have imported the texture from Blender, but we probably actually want to make a custom model, so a custom material. Just called general because it basically is everything. Put the color there, so that's that. We want a little bit of smoothness, but not too much, and then metallic. Now, when we've got these, we have this material here on the actual object, and then I'm going to drag this object here and apply that. And that will update every time I add that, for example. So, once again, select that, that's got it. That one doesn't, for some reason. That one does, so I'm going to apply that one. And that one doesn't either. So you have to make sure that they have right. Interesting. Yeah, not too sure about that one. Okay. Interesting. But we can adjust them as well if I wanted to do that, for example. So we'll worry about that. Okay. Now let's make this more interesting. So we want these to be... I think we can actually change the color here. Like that. So if you want to, this is one way you could do it. But once again, we actually want these to be prefabs. Because if we want to change all of them at once, we can do that very easily if they are a prefab. So original prefab, and then we can just duplicate that. And lucky due to the scale, I can just hold Control to snap it. And same with these. I'm going to get rid of those ones and make a prefab of this one. And Control D to duplicate that. Now what that will do is, yeah, if I change this one and apply any of that, or edit the prefab here, there's many different ways to do the prefab, but that will update all of them. So there's that. So say for example, if I wanted to make this a metallic, because this is the material, it's going to apply to everything. So that might not work. But if I wanted to make them static for light mapping and things like that, I could apply that. Now, as you note, this one is not static. But if I then go overrides, tile squares, apply all, static, static, static. So doing that is super useful if you want to save time, and also it's a bit better. I think Unity is a little bit better at sort of figuring optimizations out when it comes to prefabs. So we've got that. Okay, so that's section 1. Let's change the colors here. So let's do let's see. We need a new color. Which color do we want? Not yellow. I think this one. So let's do this. Start area. This is not the start area. Obstacle cylinders. It's after that, but anyway. So let's do that. What is going on there? Okay, it's not liking those. So we got red and we got yellow. So let's try again with these other ones. So that. Export, FBX, selected, transform. There we go. And then our material is back as well. So we can grab that, apply. So blue is good, and what was the other one? Yellow's good, purple. There we go. And our general. Okay. Cool, cool. Because we've got purple here, let's put purple here. I think that would be a good place. Where did I put it? There. Alright. So that's sort of snapped, which is what we want. So let's put this here. And then get rid of that one. And that one, and that one. So once again, we want to prefab this one. And then we can just duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. For that, let's do blue on that. Which one was blue? Those are prefabs. Okay. 2. Gotcha. Now notice that I've put these the wrong way, so I'm actually going to change that. Once again, select all of those and go that way. Nope, pointing the wrong direction. That way. Cool. And once again, let's prefab the blue so that if I do any changes, it will know. Okay. Now, as it stands, these don't have colliders. None of them do. So this is a prime example of prefabs, because basically, if I add a box collider, we can then go apply all, and they all have box colliders, whereas this one doesn't. So yeah, as you can see, box colliders, well, prefabs are super useful. Box colliders, box colliders. Is that ever a box collider? Ah, so these two, as you can see, and this is the difference in regards to prefabs and non-prefabs. So just the blue box, that's a prefab. Blue box with this is the original model. So we don't want those two, we want prefabs. So they will be updated every time. Once again, colliders on these as well. That's a collider, so that's good. And here as well. Apply all. Now we also want these to be static. So if we do any light mapping, it'll sort of do nice stuff with that. So once again, apply all. Also, apply all. Those static? Nope. Apply all. And those are static because we applied that. So there we go. So let's have a look. So let's just focus on the start here. So we've got the start and we've got this. So let's get some color into these two things. So let's go back here, hide that, and then we have to find out cylinder. Nope. Yep. Yep. All right. So once again, what colors do we want on this? So we've got sort of the 4 colors. So let's do yellow and red. And we might have to modify these a bit. Well, let's keep them yellow and red, I guess. Oh, purple and red. Something like that. Okay. So, once again, this has to be applied. We can just go base, and then it already has an example of how badly it is done. Like so. So we can sort of see what we're doing. So let's go... Actually, I'd like to sort of, if we ever do textures, I'm gonna want to sort of mark seams. So when we unwrap it, it looks good, basically. So if you unwrap it using mark seam, and then you select it all, and then you go unwrap, it'll do it really well. Now, if you notice these, for example, because it's curved, it curves it, which makes sense. And I'm sure, I don't know how to do it, I'm sure there is a way, but we can just go, which one is it? Align X? Yeah. Align X and align X. Now we do have that, and we can fix that in a second, but let's go align X. So I've got that. Now I'm pretty sure there is a way to sort of line these up better, but I'm actually just gonna scale it using X. Now I could line those up like manually if I wanted to, but I'm not going to for the sake of this. Just like close enough is good enough. And this is a good example of what trim sheets can do. So I'm going to rotate them, make them bigger. Yeah, about that. And put them there. Using this one, I can just do that. And put that down there as well. So as you can see, because of this technique, we can actually very easily create really interesting things. So those we kind of want on the red. Now, because it's all flat, we can just go a bit down, and that's that. That's good. We also want, let's say we want that to be the corners here to be sort of like a warning? I don't know what you want to call it. So this time I'm just going to go Control plus plus. And I'm hoping, this may not actually work. I'm hoping, yeah, it'll just what that. Now, the problem here, so I'm going to scale this down. Let's put this in the blue category. Maybe there. Now, these are going to be very difficult to line up, and to be honest, I don't actually know how. So there's that. There is straighten. I'm not sure the best way to do this. To be honest, straighten doesn't actually do anything. I'm not sure. So how would I do this actually? Kind of manually, I guess. Okay, so let's try this. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to split the selection and then rotate it to that and basically do what we did with the last one. Now, once again, it might take a little way. Maybe there's a way to do this better. I don't know how to do it yet because I've never really needed to do this yet. So, there's that. But let's do a quick version and see what we can do with that. Supposedly, like Max, like some of the other 3D programs do have this, like, kind of down. So there is that. But for something like this, which is relatively simple, we can kind of do it relatively quickly. Now this one, we want to do this one, I think. Yeah, that's what we want. Okay. Cool. All right. Now, if I wanted to, and I do, so we're going to do it. If you tag one of these and then go like stitch, it'll like snap it like that, which is kind of what we want. And then we can clean that up again. So line X, and a line X. This one's not bad, but I'll do it anyway. Line X, and then we can do this. Put this back on median, which is that one. Scale them up a bit. Scale them down a bit. And there we go. That looks pretty cool. Now, if I wanted to, just to really complicate things, I could actually do... Now this one's interesting because it's such a large thing. So let's do some weird stuff. Let's go really big and see what happens when it goes really small. Ah, wrong one. Vertices. Okay, that's cool. Now with that one, we actually want to, if I have to grab that somehow. Which one is it? No. Okay, let's do this. Grab that. Move that out of the way for now. And then grab that. So what we want to do is actually line up the elements. So we have to do this at the same time. One of them. The other approach is I just do that. And then it's figured out. So, let's see. That's the right one. Move that sort of down to there, which is good. And this one here, same again. That's going to be a bit tricky just because of lining up. So that may be a bit tricky. Yeah, the problem is that top bit there. Might not be able to do that, actually. Okay. That's fine. That looks cool. Alright. Now, the option here is we do have a bit of a problem with these two, which is over here. So for that one, we might want to just move this on the X. So it sort of hides the clear line. And then we can sort of maybe move a couple of these just to sort of balance that out a little bit. And then it's not as obvious as it was. So there we go. Now we want to do the same thing with this guy. So once again, I might unwrap some of this. So once again, go line with 2. Select the edges that you would like to cut, sort of thing. So we got mark seam, and got that up here again with mark seam, and we need one, maybe down here, to just cut length there. Control L, usually. How about Control? Yeah, that'll do. So I'm using Control Plus to thing. In other situations, that might be a... Let's try this. Ah, okay, interesting. So yeah, I'm just going to use Control Plus to go through that whole asset, and then go unwrap, and then we have this. So same thing again. I'm going to grab these assets, make them a bit smaller. Put them in the blue. This can go... Actually, what color do we want to do this? Let's do purple. Put up there. And once again, we want these to be sort of straight. So let's grab or separate that one and that one. Rotate there. It's always frustrating with a stream when you teach one thing and then you just have to keep doing the same thing. That's one thing. If you split in Blender anyway, if you split an asset and then don't move it, you will find that if I select the whole asset, it'll be the whole thing. So, oddly enough, in Blender, if you're going to split something, you have to move it, otherwise it doesn't think it's splitting it. So that's a thing. Alright, and let's go back to aligning the X. So as you can see with trim sheets, basically, it's really not just texturing anymore. It's kind of like a bit of a mix between texturing, unwrapping, and modeling in a way. Because if I want to add a certain element, I guess you could say, and there's like I can't separate the polygons in its current state, you could possibly add a loop or two to be able to sort of add it in otherwise. So I'm going to stitch these together again. Same with these. And then we got align Y, which is the up, because I rotated them. Cool. Alrighty. Let's put these under, let's say purple. Make that bigger. Make all of them bigger. And then we have our element there. I kind of want to make this lined as well. So let's do a similar situation where we're going to scale that down. So there's that approach, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to do that. Cool. Works for me. All right, so we should be able to save that, and then it'll probably update automatically, actually, because Unity's pretty cool that way. What was this? Okay, so those are separate. So just this one. Cylinder rotator base. Yep. And cylinder rotator obstacle. Now sometimes it works great. Very colorful. Okay, so we have that. Now note, this and this are different. One's straight and one's not. This is better. So ideally I would duplicate those. But I actually want them to go that way and them to go that way. So I will do that off stream before releasing it. So we've got that. Now, next up. Now these ones, if I recall, I actually just made them like cubes. In Unity, so these won't be mapped correctly. I can put the asset on it, but then you'll have that sort of effect because it's basically like each side is the object. So for this one, let's actually make a new asset. And we're going to do just a cube, like so. And in this case, let's scale this down. Now I'm going to do this with typing. So 1 by 1 by 1. And then just scale it across the Y to about 10. Now you'll notice that this went on for some reason. And I think that's because... Actually, no, go away. Okay, so this is on, which we don't want, because, yeah. So that will be better now, but that is also too big. So we've got 1, 1, 1, and then we can scale it down on the Y. Well, let's go on the X to 10. That's pretty much it. So that represents our object, but once again we need to do some shading. So first let's apply our base material, and that's what it looks like at the moment, which is actually pretty cool. I don't mind that idea. So we don't actually have to add okay, let's do this. Unwrap, no, not that one. Smart UV project, and that'll just put them in neat together. I always forget how to delete these. Do I just press delete? There we go. Okay. So we want all of these to sort of be the same. So let's grab these two, because that's the first two. So those need to be the same. So put them on top of each other. See where that's at. Make sure that they are the same, which they are. Yep, they are. And this, and this. And that's the other thing. Now, so notice how when I did the UV and Smart Project, these are actually squares when they're like really not. So what I need to do is in object mode, go Control A and apply all transforms, mostly scale. And then if I go back to layout, no, UV, that's what I want. And go Smart UV Project, it will treat those correctly. So making sure your asset is always thinking it's the right size. One quick way to check, actually, is this. So if I scale this, that'll be that. But if I edit it, that's still at 1, even though, so like there's all these elements of things that affect the scale or what it thinks the scale is. So yeah. Now to make this a bit easier, I'm actually going to mark the seam and put one here, and then I'm going to unwrap this, and then we have our one strip. So that's one way we can sort of save a bit of time on that. Now I can clean that up in a second, but we want this one. So let's go rotate. Put that there. Do we want yellow? Sure. Okay. And let's put this somewhere else. So let's go... Oh, that's kind of cool. Ha! Excellent. Didn't even think of that. So yeah, here's a great idea. Trim sheets allow really interesting observations that you did not expect at any time. Now those are actually flipped, so I'm actually going to... rotate that one. So then those are the same. Okay. Now in this case, it feels a bit too, what would you call it? Sparse. So if I wanted to, I could just scale this way to sort of create that element there, which looks good. Very colorful. Excellent. Yeah. I was thinking we could do some levels, but I think that's actually pretty good. So let's export that one. Make sure it's selected. Export that one. And wow, this is new. So let's call this basic wall 01, just in case we want to make some more with different colors. Selected objects, transform, cool. All right. So we need to sort of put that in all of these spaces. Now, this is going to scale the texture a bit, so I don't know if we want to do that, but we'll give it a shot and see. So we're in the cubes here. So once again, basic wall. We want our modified thing to be good, and then we want to place this. We want to place this here. That's going to go there. So let's snap it in a bit. Now, what I can do, and this one's super useful for modular things, is if I press F, no, not F, V, I can select a point, and I can use that to snap to another point. So that's super useful for that sort of thing. Now I'm going to use this one up the top. There's a better way to do it, perhaps. Yep. And go to wireframe so we can see it a bit better. A little bit better. and snap this to kind of where we want it to go, which is there. And because that was on the point, that's actually what we want to do. Press F to zoom in to the asset that we're talking about, and I believe that's where we want to go. Nope, a bit smaller. Bigger, sorry. So down to about there, maybe. So there we go. And go shaded. Select the cube, delete that. Put a box collider on it. Go move. So we have that, and now we're going to use that a lot. So we're going to use prefab. So when we duplicate it, basically everywhere, and we change anything, it will be cool. So we can get rid of these now. Now once again, these are not static because eventually I want to do some light mapping with some nice shadows and stuff, but I've done 6, so I'm going to save time because it's a prefab. So static, override, static, 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 static. Excellent. All right. Very colorful. I'm a bit worried it's like going to be too much. Now, of course, when you're designing a level properly, this is just too much. Like 100%, this is too much. That said, I'm doing this in like an hour and a half, so I get a little bit of leeway to do what I do, not do what I say. No, what? Do what I say, don't do what I do. That's the one. Okay. So scaling that down doesn't work. So we're going to need another block, basically. So I'm going to duplicate this one with Shift D, not Control, because Blender. I should have named them better. And let's do that, because that's probably going to come up a bit, and that's a useful thing to do. So basic wall 1 meter. Basic wall 1 of 2, half. Okay, so I don't really want to make this again, so I just want to cut it in half, literally. So I'm going to use Control R to cut it in half, right mouse click, delete that, and then join that with F. Now, of course, that thing is incorrect, but that will be easy to fix. So let's go mark seam. And then we can just, we actually want the front and the back to be the same, but we want to just edit this one. So we can go unwrap, rotate that. What color was it? Let's say yellow. Sure. Do we want it there or do we want it in the middle? It doesn't really matter for our purposes, I don't think. So I'm just going to leave it as that. See how it goes. And if that doesn't work, that's fine. All right. So export this to basic wall. Let's just call this 2. But we're going to do this with a better name. Hey, Parcel Party, how's it going? Now, once again, if anyone has any questions, please ask. That's why I'm here. I'm just doing this because I want to. Okay, so that's basic wall 1. Now let's see. So when I go in, they're all going to break. Now the reason that's break is because the basic wall is looking for the previous mesh name. And now that is missing. So what I can do very easily is just drag the basic wall in there. Mesh, 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 mesh. So this one. So sometimes when you're looking at a mesh, you'll drag this in and you can't drop it. That's because it's looking for the mesh which is actually under it. So if I do that, that'll be done. And because this is a prefab, ta-da! Right, excellent. Yeah, Blender's 80% amazing. There are some things that I don't like about it, but most of it, like the basic modeling and stuff, like is really good. Like it's better than I used to use 3D Studio Max, and everyone has their personal preferences and all that sort of stuff, and that's fine. But painting, not fun. I do light mapping in Unity because I build the space in Unity. So usually my approach, and everyone's a bit different, my approach is build the bits in Blender and then put them together in Unity, set them all up for optimization, so prefabs and all the rest of it. So if you have 10 objects, then you only need one and then copy it, make it a prefab, make it a static, and all these sort of things. And Unity Lightmapper is pretty good for the most part. Bakery is better, but there are some issues with that. There are ways around it, but it's complicated. So lately I've just been focusing on using Unity Lightmapper, and it does great, to be honest. So yeah. That's prefab. We want the wall. So we want this to have the correct material. We want this to be in the space. Let's put it down the bottom there. And once again, let's use the sort of V to snap this. Well, actually, so that's 1.5. I don't know what this is meant to be. So I'm gonna use the V approach. That. And then we're just gonna use this because I'm lazy. Snap, snap, snap. Yeah, it's a little bit bigger. No, that's good. And then down to about there. Yeah. And we're probably going to be looking at light mapping in this session. Yeah. If we have enough time, and we should. So, yeah. All right. So we have our half wall. So I can prefab that one. Thank you. And then we can duplicate that around everywhere. So duplicate. Okay. So we have our wall. So this is all good, and we need to sort of make this wall the opposite. So I'm thinking sort of a blue sort of thing. Now, this isn't as obvious as one would hope. Because if you just have... that's the point. If you just have a wall of color, you don't know that you're meant to go through one color over the other one. So that's a bit of an interesting one. So I'm kind of tempted to leave this white, if that makes sense. Because then it makes it very clear that the space is color, and the things that are white are... maybe something you need to interact with or stuff like that. So I don't mind that. I think that's okay. All right. It's so colorful. It's ridiculous. Okay. Next up, what do we got? So these are the seesaws. Oh, so this will be interesting. So we can hide the basic wall. We need a seesaw, which is this one. Much bigger. Once again, we're going to be looking at... So we kind of want this end and this end to have that sort of design, and everything else to be pretty plain. And I'll probably have two of these as well. So let's see. I'm going to go back to layout just to make it a bit easier to see. I'm going to use Control R to add 2 edge loops. I'm going to use S to scale. That'd be interesting. Scale along the Y. So SY. And maybe there is good. Right. So once again, we're adding polygons so we can texture it in a way that we want with the approach that we're going with. So this will be much easier now. Once again, I'm going to select it all. No, I'm going to go to object mode, Control A, so all the transforms are correct, just to make sure. And let's go with this and this. UV editing, top view, UV project from view. There we go. Now, we don't have a material applied to this yet, so we can't see what we're doing. Now we can. So, what do we want? Let's go with blue. I think that's the color we need to do. Once again, we're going to... I'm going to keep them a little separate, and I'll worry about the arrowness of them later. But we need to make these a bit bigger. Now notice that if you have a polygon that is down, so on these sides, it goes straight down. And for this is fine, but like this side is literally 1 pixel. So sometimes this works in your favor with a simple thing, but if it's really complicated, it doesn't look very good at all. So keep that in mind. What I could do if I wanted to is grab that side and then apply it separately. But I'm not going to do that because time, and I don't need to because that's fine. And yeah, so there's that. And then we need to grab, yeah, let's grab all of these. Let's just go smart. Sure. And then we can just go scale down to blue. There. Now, the next thing we need to do is do that. Nope. Do that. Nope. Do that. Control plus to select all of that. And what can we do here? Let's go Smart UV project. We'll do that again. That's good. Scroll that down. Do we want to make that? I think we do. We do. Good. And then we want these kind of ends probably to not worry about it, so just put them up in there. So that's cool. And once again, you have that issue there. Now for that, what we can do is we can select a different, so maybe this one here on the edge. So let's do this. We're going to mark seam all the way to the end, actually. Mark seam, grab the end, mark seam, and grab the end, mark seam. Plus, 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 plus. Grab all of that, and then unwrap that. So that's a bit better. And because we put the seam like on the edge there, the UV, like the connection there, won't be as obvious, which you do pretty much in every case if you're doing characters, if you're doing anything. So as you can see, yeah, that's just the thing. So the seam is there, but you can't really see it because of how it's dealing with it. So that's kind of what we want to do. Once again, move them up over here, and then we have our fantastic thing. Now, if I wanted to, I kind of do. Also, now it works. I'm going to make these go this way. And that looks a little bit more in line with the edges there. Maybe about... yeah, that's good. Alright. Cool. We have our seesaw. Seesaw. Which is this one. Ding. Now these didn't update. Why is that? Because this is a prefab. So if this is a prefab, let's do this. So I'm going to actually go to the prefab and go open asset in isolation. This means that we can sort of modify it just by itself. We don't have to worry about the whole scene. The problem is that the asset, this one, is that. But what's happening is it's this object, which is what we want, but the material isn't applied. So if we apply it here, why isn't that working? Let's try this. So if that doesn't work, because it's already in the scene, we can do that. Now, all of the edits in the prefab in this mode will automatically go across to everything else. Now, as you can note, this is blue and that is blue, and we actually want this to be different. Otherwise, they might think that this is normal, which it's not. So we're going to have to change the color. Now, this is going to be very easy because it's all there. Let's go to kind of the opposite color. So G for move, Y for up, and Control to snap. And we have exactly what we want there. So we can save that now. Seesaw large, export, and ta-da. We have our seesaw. Now I do kind of want different colors. So we're going to have to need a duplicate. Yeah, we're going to need a duplicate. Duplicate. Let's just keep it that name. And let's make this, what's the colors setting up to it? So we've got purple. So I think we need red again. So once again, select all, select all, select all, G, Y, down, 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 done. And then seesaw, large, let's go seesaw 2. Okay, now, for this, what can we do? Because we have a prefab, and these are all the prefabs, but we want to keep the reactors. So for that case, what we can do, we could make a prefab variant. I'm not very comfortable with them because like it's all stacked and nested and all this other stuff, so I'll usually just make 2 separate ones. So for that, let's try this. I don't know if this is going to work actually, but let's give it a shot. So Control D. Let's call this one red. And let's rename this one yellow. Okay. Now this is just the name, so I won't change these up here. It'll just change these names. So for this one, let's go in here and let's change this to Seesaw 2 mesh. Done. That's it. But we do have to place them. So I'm going to get rid of these 2. No, we're going red here, aren't we? So we want that to be yellow, this to be red, and this to be red. So get rid of them. And now that we have, hopefully, a working example, we can just plonk this here. And it goes exactly where we need it to, luckily. And then duplicate. Done. Super colorful. Right. Okay, how are we going for time? Alright. So, that gives you an idea of using trim sheets to make a space. So I'm going to save that. Happy accidents, man. Happy accidents. So let's give this a shot. I have heard like several people say that my voice has a certain, I don't know, something to it. I need to grow my hair out. Now, because it's been a while, I'm going to make sure that this is a unique build. So I'm going to play around again. I'm sure there's a market there. We're missing a lot of Bob Ross. So... Ooh, we have my VRM as well. So this is a guy I've did a lot of the VRM tests on, for example. So We can use that. I have, there's like a polygon somewhere. It looks like a little fly surrounding him. It's very annoying, but that's a thing. So yeah, as you can see, it's much more colorful than it was. Yeah, so imagine if you came to this wall for the first time and everything was colored. You wouldn't know what to do. So these white walls actually sort of make sense. Now there is other texturing I could do. I could make it like a solid yellow or something that's equally clear, or glass. Glass would probably work as well. So there's, and it would look kind of cool. So there's a lot of things we could do to make sure that if you're doing something like this, everything has to read. And this comes down to like level design and all these sort of things. You always want hints or expectations to be set correctly. Otherwise, your audience will get annoyed because something happens that they didn't expect. So that's part of the battle, is not just making the content, it's just making the content well that makes sense. So these work. Excellent. Fantastic. So that one element worked. No. I've made it, and I forget every single time. Okay, let's see what we can do. Yeah, I'm great at this game. So yeah, this is this is the space. I'm getting better. I've only failed like twice. The thing is also you can kind of, oh, you can't anymore. Sweet. So if this is the first time you've seen this, I've actually got a PPV here that slows the player down so you can't just run across the space. Yes. No, I kind of want to do that. I want to do these as well. These would be really good with yeah, a particle as well. So you've got that if you want to. So yeah, anyway, fun times, even for the guy who's made the level. But anyway, once again, delete that. Once again, I'm not sure if you save the level, it'll update it, or I just find that it will always update if you've got that. Okay. So, now that we have the first half, because there's a good half like afterwards, but we've definitely looked at trim sheets and how to do that. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Now, let's have a look at some of the lighting. Now, there's a couple of parts to lighting. Now, in this space, there's no metallic, so we're not going to be needing any reflection stuff. So I'll sort of skip reflection probes for this session, but what I will do is actually add light probes as well. So let's do this. So we need a new thing. I'm just going to call it probes. And let's add light probes. Now what light probes do is they create, and if we F to these, they create little bubbles. That's it. Ship it. Now what these do is when you bake an environment, each of these dots will have lighting information for how much light and what color is that light in the space, for example. So if you're under here, it might have a shadow. If it's over here, it would be light. If you have neon lights, it keeps into consideration that. And what happens is your dynamic objects will take this information into consideration when running around the space. So if you're looking at sort of shaded areas or highly lit areas, you kind of want a little bit more. But notice that this direction, none of the light changes. It's all kind of the same. But in this direction, it does change. So you would probably put a little more this way and less this way. And basically, that means that when my character runs in this, it will take the lighting into consideration. And this is when... This helps with creating your avatars blend with the environment better. Because if you don't have this, the avatar and the environment are just kind of completely different things, which kind of reminds me of 90s blue screen effects. E.g., very bad. So there are different ways to do it sort of fast. I will always assume that people will jump, so double everything. But you will find that you don't really need like 2 up here because there's no light changing. So I'll kind of like just grab these ones. Now I'm using Shift to multiple select. I'm using Control D to duplicate. And for time, I'm just gonna kind of grab these and then just duplicate them all over the shop. So yeah. Now, of course, if you have a more complicated space, you would have more complicated use of light maps. I would actually also need to go under because people will fall down a lot. The thing is also, if your characters run outside the light maps, they'll kind of have no information. So you actually kind of want to make sure that your light maps are bigger than your entire environment that the player can get to. So you can do that. There are assets you can buy on the store that sort of do this for you. So that is definitely an option as well. But once again, just doing sort of the speed run for this sake. You may not be able to see it on the stream, but as you can see, I'm just copying all of these all the way up. And once again, because this is bigger, I'm going to have to scale that out a bit. I can get rid of these ones because that's the last line there. So let's grab these, move them out. I hope they don't jump further than that. But, you know, people. So that's good. And the last thing we need to do is actually go lower. So I'm going to sort of grab all of them. Actually, this is not a very good idea. It won't be very accurate. Well, let's give it a shot. It says it's selecting something. So Control D. I can't even see this one, so don't worry if you can't. So I'm going to put this really down the bottom. So, yeah. Okay. So that is light probes, which I recommend for any space, to be honest, because that will add a higher effect. Now, when it comes to light mapping, light probes will take into consideration what we do here. So, let's get into that. Light mapping, if you don't know, is going to take all of the light information and bake it into the assets. So it just uses a texture rather than real-time lighting. Real-time lighting doesn't look as good, to be honest, unless it's like super expensive and you have like ray tracing. So in WebGL, the best thing to do is have 1 or 2 lights. And at the moment, we just have 1 directional light. And that has a shadow as well. And that's okay. And for this sort of like bright kind of space, it's not a problem. But I will show you how to light map even with a directional light. But say, for example, I could put, I don't know, let's just do some examples. So let's put, let's say a point light here. So I'm going to put it right here and move it up. So you can sort of see it just there. Actually, let's do this. I'm going to put this here so you can see this sort of shadow as well. So this is just a simple example, a very simple example. And let's make it green because why not? And let's put the intensity to 10 so you can see it. Okay. So this will do a few things because these assets will not move. They will not change. However, these assets will. So we don't want these to be static because they're going to change. But if I bake that shadow, then that would be incorrect. Now, this is probably going to be a little incorrect because we have baked light with that line. So once again, it's finding like what are the best ways to make things static? What are the best things to make not static? Not static needs to be things that are basically animated. Now, if I wanted to, if I had an asset that just went up and down, and the light above it put a shadow down, you could make that static and animated, and it would look okay. But if you had a ball, for example, that was going left and right, and you set it to static, the shadow would be underneath it, and then when it moved, the shadow would not move with it, which would look really bad. So there's definitely a case of choosing which things should be static and which things should be, what do you call it? Not static or dynamic. So I'm going to hit these, and these are going to break. They are very dynamic. Things like the Seesaw is an interesting one because, once again, this isn't the best space to show because it's just very colorful and lots of light and open in space. So this won't be ideal. But say, for example, with this, the shadows probably wouldn't matter that much and the baking would be okay. But here, like that edge would be dark. So if I rotated, this would be shadowed. So we probably don't want that. So there's definitely a balance between, yeah, choosing static and what is not. This also is dynamic, and the shadow, you can see the shadow underneath. But if I bake it, and we'll do an example. Actually, let's do this. Let's put static on both of these. And let's keep these to not static. And then you can sort of see the effect of how weird it gets when you make things static that should not be. So we've got that. All right. Now these are also dynamic. These are static, which are not set. But those are the originals. And that is a prefab. So we actually need to get rid of these. And drag these around. Ah, nope. These from up here, actually. You get the picture. I'll save you time. So we'll do that. Okay, so let's have a look. So we're going to... When you're light mapping, once you've sort of set the things to dynamic and static objects. Now note, when you say static, there's actually more than just one thing that you're actually setting. So a really quick look at this. Contribute global illumination, or GI. This is the light mapping thing. If everything else was off and this was on, this would be light mapped correctly. Occluder static and occludee static. This is optimization. So if there is a smaller object behind this, this is an occluder and occlude. Sorry, this is an occludee. No, hang on. I always get these mixed up. Occluder will hide things. Occludee is hidden. So if these two are on, depending on the things in front of it or behind it, you will sort of not render it, which optimizes some of it. Batching static, this does some stuff, I think, with materials, which we've done. So a lot of our assets are one material, so we'll put all of the assets together. Navigation static, I don't think we look at, because that's like NPC stuff where they need to get around. Off-mesh link generation, I don't even know. And reflection probe is, does this asset get baked into reflection probes? So if I don't want it in the probe, I could turn that off, but I could affect the light and light mapping. So that's what those are. So if you put this one button on, all of those are on. Sometimes, once you get to the real detail of it, you might turn some of those on and off. But for today, we're just going to go the easy one. So that's the static. rush job. Now, when you're setting up your lights, so we only have 2 lights. We have a point light and directional light. With our directional light, we want it to cast shadows on things like the avatar, because that looks cool. But we also want this light to maybe cast some light mapping. So for that, we change our mode from real-time, which is just real-time, to mixed, which will be baked and real-time. Real-time baked lights look better. They take a little while to do it, but they only work on static objects, as noted. Now with our point light, we don't want this real-time, we just want it baked. So the green is going to affect anything that is set with static. Lights don't need to be set as static, this is just that. So baked. And that's that. Now another small note with light mapping is when you import your models, make sure that Generate Lightmap Uvs is on. If you don't, your light maps are going to be a mess, because it'll take whatever comes in with Blender as the first mesh and then create it that way, which is not right. You want your light maps to be on a second UV channel, and if you're doing it in Unity, you want Unity to unpack it. Unity's okay at it, Bakery's better, but once again, there are problems with Bakery. So yeah, make sure all your models, not prefabs, models, have your Generate Lightmap UVs. So objects are set to static, point light and directional light are set to mixed, real-time, or baked. And then we can go to lighting. And this is where the magic happens. So, first thing, we need to create new lighting settings. Done. You can name it if you want, by sort of, what do I do? I just don't do anything. I just use it the same. It is there somewhere. I forget where it goes. You could search there. I'm not going to, because new lighting settings is fine. Don't worry about that. I usually leave pretty much everything automatic. For time, depending on the space, I will change that down to about half. You could change it to a quarter to get a feel for the space. And then push that back up for final render. Progressive CPU, that's the CPU figuring it out. The GPU, depending on the graphics card. I have a 2070, so that's a bit better than a CPU trying to figure it out. What else do I do? So I turn that down. These are all fine. I will bump this up to 2048. Probably won't use it much, but we can do that. Ambient Occlusion, I'll do that because you get that like dark shadow-like in corners and stuff, which is quite nice. Directional mode, I'll usually leave all these the same. On my final bake, I'll put all of these up and put this to high resolution. But once again, that takes more time. So there's a bunch of that. But when it comes down to it, your first bake, put everything down. Because you just want to get an idea of how right you are. And I can pretty much guarantee you will always be wrong. So maybe even further, depends on how long it takes. I will note that I stopped talking with light mapping because it consumes all my computer, so we'll give this a shot and see what happens. Alright, see you in a second. Sometimes it crashes. Has it crashed? I think it's crashed. And I didn't save it either. Oh no. Yeah, that's died. That's not great. And I didn't save it either. Oh no. Okay. No, gone. And task. Okay. Is everything dead, or can you still hear me? So, couple of small notes with light mapping. This is gonna be horrible. It's a little unstable. So when you have streaming, Discord, Photoshop, Blender, and everything else, yeah, be careful with how many things you do, even if it's just going into Discord and saying something. Have I lost everything? Ooh, this is gonna be interesting. Okay. I'll take it. I'll take it. File, save. Okay. Where's the light? Let's see. Was that saved? No, okay. Right. Okay, let's give this another shot. I'm going to close everything. So, save that. Goodbye. Photoshop. Can I? Yeah, I'll better save that, I guess. Save as. Where are we? What do you call a texture like that apart from just texture? Because it's the thing for the whole space. Okay. Alright, now. Quick zoom. Light. Point light. Here. Green. Go. Baked. 10. Good. Models. Generate. You've made. Good. There's a replied. Cool. Directional. Mixed. Sure. Lights. Now let's check all of these are static. Okay, I can just do that. So static. Apply all. Static set. Static set. How about these ones? Nope. So those two are static. Yes. These two are not. Cool. Okay. I think that's it. Up to date. I did that on purpose to show you the risks involved with unwrapping. So yeah, we've lost that as well. So that's fine. So I just want to make sure. I'm surprised that that one actually stayed, but it looks like it has. So generate Uvs. Okay. File. Save. So, big tip. Ever. All the time. Save your space regularly. Another thing you could do, and I recommend doing this, like, once you get to a point where it's like, this is good or something, I would recommend actually duplicating this. So you do copy, Control C, Control V, and make a second project, And then... Actually, I'm going to do that because we broke it. And I don't know how broken. So we're going to get rid of that. So let's look at our backup file. So we don't do that again. So, Control C, Control V. And what this will do is, like, it'll keep a version of your space in a place where you're comfortable with it. And then if you break the next one, you can always go back. So this is basically the autosave that isn't auto. But I've, like, the amount of times that this has saved my life is considerable. So I do recommend it. And one tip would be maybe do it before you do light mapping for the first time, or you're doing, like, light mapping for, like, the final time. Because the final time, you'll probably look at increasing everything. And sometimes, depending on your computer, it might not like that. So, yeah. Old school. So then all you have to do is open your new file, and hopefully it won't come up with errors saying that you broke it. So fingers crossed. Hey provider HD, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Don't know if you've been hanging around for a while. No errors. This is great. All right. What we did lose is our probes. That's annoying. So, imagine, if you will, correct lighting when the character is running around the space. But for today, that's not going to be a thing. So the only thing we've really lost that did take a little bit of time was the light probes. But important. There's tutorials. Go check them out. All right. So lighting. First thing, new lighting scenes. Now let's go down, and I'll change them as I go through them. So we want this to GPU. We want this to 256. I'm going to halve everything, actually. Keep everything in 2s. I don't know if you have to, but that's what I do. Put this one up to 248. Ambient Occlusion is on. Directional, medium, and done. That's it. Let's give that a shot. Okay. Save. And go. And I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to sit right here, and I'm going to watch it count. So we'll see how that goes. Wish me luck. All right. Everything's sort of shut down except OBS, so that's going to be that. So yeah, we'll see how we go. Winning. Excellent. Okay. So we've done that. Now, if you want to, you can check this, and it shows you what it is, basically. Now, we have a lot of space, but it doesn't take up that much, and this is packed pretty well, actually, so that's quite nice. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at. Now, here is a prime example. Let's F on this one. Of what happens when something is static when it probably shouldn't be. So if I rotate this, it's a bit darker underneath, right? A little bit. So because we've got our light probe, our light, what do you call it? Our light is real-time and mixed. The light is very subtle on the baking because this is a very bright area. But if you look at this one, it doesn't have that problem. Like, it's all the same sort of color. So baked light mapping is like if the object moves, the lighting as it is will stay on it as a texture. But it creates a second texture. And that's what the generate Lightmap Uvs, this one here, that's what this does. It allows it to figure this out. So the first time you do a light map, it will take a little bit longer because it's actually pulling apart all of your assets and packing them into this 1 second UV for light mapping. So this isn't exactly what we want. So I'm going to turn that off because those are very animated. Now, if you look at this, so these were static, so this light is going to pay attention to that, but this is not. And as you can see, the light here it is showing through, even though there is an object here, but the light does not know it is because this is not static. So light mapping will only pay attention to anything that has, well, technically the contribute GI button here. And if you press static on all of them, then all of them are on. So there's that. So I like the glass idea, so eventually I'll probably do that. Actually, I could do that now. Let's do that. So with our one texture, this space is going to be so small. Okay, so we want to get rid of this one. We want to color it kind of bluish. We want this to be transparent, faded. Yeah, fade. Transparent takes into consideration reflection probes, and I think fade doesn't. Fade is a faster shader. So you probably want to do this if you want to go fast. And we want this to be a little bit transparent, maybe about here. And let's just drag these onto these assets. Ah, that's a point. Oh, good. They're prefabs. So I'm going to go like that. And I'm going to go like, interesting. Like that. And then I'm hoping these have all changed. So prefab will consider everything underneath it. So if I go apply all of them change. So that's kind of cool. Now this one isn't because that's not breakable. But that's a secret. So we're going to do that. So they all look the same. Now note that these are showing here, but if I press play, I believe the animation will sort of hide one of them. So they all look the same because of the animation on the reactor. So that's fine. So that's good. Now we want this to be a little shinier. A little metallic and very shiny. And now this is where we might want to get reflection probes in because of these are being very reflective, whereas the rest of the space is not. But sort of running out of time, so I'm gonna have to do that another day. But once again, the tutorials are there to show you how to use reflection probes. Let's do a quick example. I got kind of addicted to teaching stuff. Probes. Light. Reflection probe. So, every object in this box is going to reflect this reflection probe. So, if I zoom into that, let's scale this out a bit. So let's put it out here. Put that out here. Doesn't really matter everything else, but let's just do those two. Now the circle, oops. This circle is the point in space that is going to reflect to. And these mirrors kind of, you don't want to have 3, that's too many, because each of these reflection probes is going to be 2048, well, whatever size this is. So if I bake this, you can sort of see that. Now notice things that are static will be reflected in it. Things that are dynamic will not. But say, for example, if I wanted these to be in the reflection probe, I can actually do that. So these are not dynamic, they won't consider the shadows, but it will consider it in the reflection probe. And I would also want these. So these are dynamic objects. I don't want them static, but I do want them to show in the reflection probe, because it's very rare to get a clear reflection. So the color there is very important. So once again, if we go to a reflection probe, if you see over here, it's blank, but now it's there. So you wouldn't see this detail, especially because it's very small. So this is 128, like 128 by 128 pixels, which is probably good for assets that are not clear. So if you go to glass, this is like 0.8 and 0.03, say. So this won't reflect much. But if I wanted to, I could do this. I think this sometimes works. Yeah. So if you look here, you can kind of, well, you probably can't because the streaming, but you can kind of see. But let's do this. Let's change this to solid, and let's change that to white. Yeah, there you go. So you can kind of see. But if I go to 100% and 100%, you can 100% see all of it. But if this is a very big asset on the space, this will be really blurry. So you would have to, in this case, push the reflection probe up to, let's say, maybe 512, which is high, but the quality gets better. Now you do have issues with reflection probes reflecting objects that have high reflection. So you can do things like that. And I'm not sure how to get around that, actually. So it's a bit of an interesting one. I think there is a way to do it, but I forget how. So there's that. So yes, keep in mind that there are certain things that are a bit interesting. Box projection might fix it. Nope. But yeah, so we're going to turn this down to like actual glass again. So I go back to blue. Let's turn the metallic down to 0.3 and then put down to 8. Now this is very fuzzy, so the quality of the reflection probe does not matter as much, and it saves a lot of space. So 512 map is much bigger than 128, and you wouldn't really notice the difference on this reflection. So there's that. So we got that. Okay. So that's pretty much what we're going to do for this session. I think we've covered a fair bit. So we looked at trim sheets, we've looked at light probes and then broke it. We've looked at light mapping, and we've looked at a quick look at reflection probes. So hopefully that covers a few bases and is useful. Some things were very fast, some things were a bit slow, but hopefully you got something out of it. But let's give it a quick run to wrap up. Excellent. Okay. Now with these, I want to do a smash, because if it, like, sound makes a huge part in sort of a lot of these sort of things. So I could definitely do that. You could do seesaw noises. I don't know how that would go. I'm going to try something here. Nope. Can I jump? Nope. So once again, prefab saves the day, and also not at the same time. Whoa, whoa. Do I know it? I hate this. So yeah, there's that. I'll just say that. So yeah, and this is a much more interesting place now, 100%. Oh, that's an interesting thing. You can't go on the, you can't go backwards. So if I go there, oh, maybe you can. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So yeah, so as you can see, this is a much better space. I will share this online, so people can run through. And I'll put it in the general chat thing. Just to have an update on that. And then, yeah, I think, like, I've sort of shown how to do most of the space, so I could probably do most of it offline until I get to the next thing that would be maybe newish. So I might look at that when I get a chance and see what happens there, I guess. So give me a sec. Fallguys. And drop this in. Okay. Upload. And done. Alright, I'm going to save that. So I don't lose it again. And yeah, then share this in the... let's make it a hangout, actually. Yeah. And there we go. Let's get this one. I can't put light probes because it's not in there. So, let's go with... What are we going to go with? Trim sheets. And... light probes before crashing. Light mapping and reflection probes. Probe example. There we go. Although the light probes and reflection probes don't really show. Alright, cool. Alrighty, so I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm going to face the screen because, no, I'm going to face the screen and dance to wrap that up. Hope you guys have got something out of it. I had a lot of fun. I always do. And yeah, happy building. I'll see you all in the Discord and look forward to seeing what people come up with because, yeah, we're getting into some really interesting stuff now that people are sort of really getting into it. So, having a lot of fun seeing it. VRMs are pretty cool too. I got my Caleb in. Super happy about that. But yeah. Alright. Have a good day. See you.